I love the way you speak about that you are. And this morning I was working with a client, and this whole idea of fuel, which is another one of your dimensions, particularly for women leaders who have all of our leaders have a lot of pressures on them in the world today, but women have some additional pressures of family and other things, and giving them permission to actually speak about and claim again their need to be fueled and their need to look at that in some really innovative ways. So I think that's been really helpful to me in our practice, and connecting things like awe and wonder together. That's just been it's been life-giving for the leaders that I have been working with, who are amazing leaders, but often don't spend time focusing enough on their own fuel and their own well-being.
And I appreciate that word, life-giving. I mean, because that is the point. Underneath all of the work is how can we engage in conversations? So like you as a guide, as you're doing work with leaders, as I'm doing work with managers, with teams, whoever, how can we engage in conversations that the conversations themselves become a source of uplift? They become a source of, wow, I noticed that I feel upregulated. I feel more balanced. I feel calmer. I feel alert. I feel engaged with connected to myself by virtue of this conversation with you. And that to me is the mark of an intimate conversation and a growth conversation. Fuel is one of those categories, as you mentioned. It's one of the dimensions. It has 4 of the psychometrics in it. So eating for fuel, moving for fuel, resting for fuel, breathing for fuel.
Breathing, love that one.
I know breathing is one that most people are like, breathing for fuel. Okay, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
But the other 3 are what most people would consider, okay, we know this in the media. These are wellness behaviors, right? So those 3 in particular come from my 35-year-old past, my 20-something-year-old self. That was the world I lived in. And they are critical. They're critical for physical energy. They're critical for making a physiological state change in the moment when you find yourself triggered by something, by a conversation, by a thought, by a situation. You walk into a room, people are maybe tense and yelling at each other, and you find yourself already getting tense. So the ability to check in with yourself, pause and take a breath and consciously use breathing for fuel to make a physiological state change so that you don't perpetuate that toxicity or the reactivity. All of these paths can be incredibly powerful. Most people don't think about how they eat, rest, move, and breathe. We think of them as something we need to do during our day. I need to breathe to live. I need to eat to live. I need to move to live. But we don't think of them as conscious tools that we can proactively use to help us manage our stress effectively, to manage our energy throughout the day effectively. As an example of that, right before this conversation, about 45 minutes before, I realized I am feeling like a slump. I've been doing a big project. I've been working hard on it, and I could feel myself mentally in a slump. And I took about a 21-minute nap, just because I knew, that I give myself 1 minute to fidget, and then I had 20 minutes to nap. And that for me, I will wake up from that. I'll do that almost daily, or a non-sleep deep rest practice, an NSDR practice, almost every day, as practices in the middle of the day to reset my internal state of balance and well-being for the rest of the day. And the rest of the day becomes, a whole new day, a whole new conversation. So we can use all of these when we notice ourselves in our own states of being. We can use all 19 pathways, but you and I are talking about fuel right now. We can use those as proactive behaviors we can participate in or choose to really shift our state of being. So that's another connection, by the way, to the leadership circle profile, because the leadership circle profile does such a good job at helping us understand the difference between reactive orientation and creative orientation. When we're coming from a place where we just want to get rid of something, reactive orientation, a place that's often from fear or just enough or fight or whatever that behavior, but it's reactive, versus creative orientation. What do I want to bring into existence? Well, the 19 pathways in Be Will Lead Will Pulse say, here are some ways that if you find yourself, if you know your signals of stress and you know you've gotten into a reactive tendency, what might you do to support not just a psychological shift in your being, but a physiological shift in your being? Because those always go together. There's no time when we are just mentally doing something without there being this physiological counterpart to it. Mm-hmm. So I'm rambling now, but that's fuel is, to me, some of the insights just in the fuel category alone, where people will score themselves low because they're like, I just use food, I just use movement to just get this machine, this body, this machine working, versus your body's not a machine. Your body is a living, growing, evolving part of nature. We are nature. So how might you treat it that way? What would you put in your body to support it in being at a place of the kind of alert presence and engagement that you want to show up at work? Because if you've decided that you are going to take this stance of leader, and if you're in a role of power, you are broadcasting your state of being to everyone else, whether you like it or not. You're naturally doing that. So I think the pathways can be quite powerful. They can create some powerful awarenesses and possibilities for change, positive change.
Well, and the practices that you speak of, and we're very big believers at Courage Group that it takes practice to shift the organization to the future you want it to be, the future culture you want it to be, to shift your leadership. You have to have practice. It doesn't just happen with a snap of fingers.
Right.
And so you've just brought, I think, some new distinctions to the idea of wellness that go beyond just stress. And because you brought in things like purpose and vision and the importance of awe and wonder. So you're bringing together for us a much more powerful way of framing the way that we can actually thrive in our workplaces and provide leadership. And I know that you're committed to, and you've got this work already in place, but you're committed to doing research that continues to develop your practices, develop your understanding of what it takes to have thriving in leadership.